direct outreach. It's really hard to just kind of understand this. It doesn't even really sound like it should make sense. But when you apply to jobs or send your resume to places that don't necessarily have an opening, you have a better success rate of getting a job offer than if you apply to something posted online. I know, it makes no sense. But the reason is kind of what this hidden job market is all about. There are so many times where places want to hire somebody and they just haven't gotten around to posting an ad. There's so many reasons. One is probably the biggest, is procrastination. I was in HR. People hate putting up those ads because then you get hordes of resumes coming in. A lot of times people don't take the time to tailor them to the job. A lot of times they don't know what they're going for, so you get hundreds of resumes that don't even fit remotely the position you're hiring for. So when they hear about somebody who could do a certain job and do it well, a lot of times they'll at least bring them in for an interview. So the way to do this is first figure out where it is you want to work. And what's kind of fun about that is instead of waiting till you see something on, say, Career Builder and, not really interested in the company, but you could do the job and you need a job, so might as well apply. This way you get to think about, where do you want to work? What companies are you most interested in? And you can really think big here too. As mentioned, I wrote a book about associations, and I tell people, there's some associations. There's literally one for antique salt and pepper shaker collectors. But there's also, the associations in Hollywood. Those are the same things. The ones that are all, the Academy that gives out the Oscars and the Emmys, these are all associations. So my point is that these are the things that are out there and people don't really think about it because they don't see it being posted. So what I always recommend to people is to come up with a big list of all the places you would want to work. You can cut down on it later if you find that they're not viable for whatever reason, but just brainstorm and have fun and think about where you would like to work, and then come up with a strategy to get in front of decision makers at those places. So in a perfect world, you'd also have a contact at those organizations, which is why the networking is just an important piece with all of these methods. But even without it, if you write a letter and send your resume and talk about that company specifically and how you can solve a problem of theirs, they'll certainly consider you. I don't have full-time employees. I have a few virtual assistants, but I always say in my presentations, even though I'm not hiring and I just don't have the model to do that, if somebody wrote me and was like, I think I could help you double your sales in a year and you wouldn't have to do that much more work because I could take care of it. I know how to do this and I've done it before. Here's how. I'd certainly, pay attention. And that's the kind of thing that all of these companies do. And it happens a lot more often than you think, where they'll even actually create a position. So it is going out of your comfort zone a little bit, and again, it's not as simple as applying online because it's not such a direct route, but it can be a lot more fun, and a lot of times just by going through this process of trying to find contacts in these companies you're interested in, you'll end up finding out about more opportunities than you might not have ever considered too. So a couple tips for uncovering these opportunities or the hidden job market. Use the news. Read articles, think about what's on TV, and just kind of pay attention. If you hear about some places planning to relocate to Chicago, like when Boeing was coming here, that would have been a perfect time to start sending these letters because it was before they moved, before they started advertising. They'd get your resume and you'd only be competing with yourself. They didn't have anyone else's yet, or not too many people. So kind of read between the lines when you do see the news. There's a great site called hiddenjobsapp.com. And what it does is it basically culls all the newspaper articles from around the country that are talking about companies that are going to be relocating, or new branches that are opening, or new products that are going to be selling, that you can kind of use to position yourself as someone who could help them in that effort. It's kind of nice because they do have it by state and also by company, so I really recommend checking that out. Analyzing ads, looking at those job ads, take it a little step further and think about where there might be other opportunities. So I'll give you 2 examples. Let's say Northwestern's oncology department is looking for a new director of marketing. Chances are Rush, University of Chicago Medical Center, all of the Chicago medical centers in oncology might be interested in seeing your resume if you're director of marketing, because a lot of times people will move to competitors, so there's usually going to be a shift in the whole industry. The other way this helps is looking at kind of parallel industries. If you notice one company is hiring a lot of salespeople, for example, they're going to need people to support those salespeople, whatever the product is. So basically customer service. So you might want to send your resume in with a letter talking about how you've got a customer service background and you've worked in a call center before and you'd love to help this growing company. Any employer is going to really respect that and take notice. And then asking around again kind of comes down to networking, just talking to people you would talk to otherwise, saying things like, have you heard about anything coming down the pipeline at your company? What's going on in your organization? Anything changing, anything new? Listening to what your friends say. If they say, like one of my old organizations where I worked, they just moved locations. That implies to me that there's probably going to be a couple more opportunities because it's a bigger location. They moved, so they're going to have more space, and that's why they moved. There's going to probably be some hiring. So listening to what your friends say and asking around to see if they can give you any other clues. Okay, recruiters, we've talked about this a little bit, and I know some of you were surprised that the rate was so low. And it'll really depend. I don't know what kind of work all of you guys are going to be going into, but generally recruiters are used more for very senior level positions. IT is another really big one. But there are recruiters in most industries. Does anyone know how a recruiter works? Okay, we're back here. Can you explain?
Yeah, pretty much they get paid on commission by the company to find a position to fill. So like they work for you but they get paid by the company. So it's in their interest to find you a job. That's why I've heard it described as.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I didn't know that till I worked in HR. So there is still a big misconception out there that they do work for you, and I see what you're saying, but I think people might understand that differently. They do truly work for the company. They're paid by the company. The company is their first priority. What they're trying to do is find a candidate who will fit that company's open position. So in a way, they're definitely going to be attentive to what you're looking for because they want you to want this job too. It is in their best interest to get you to fit that job. But the downside to that is, because the candidates don't have to pay, obviously it's a good thing to be in touch with recruiters, but they tend to disappear if they don't have an opening. And you can't really hire one to work for you, like an agent, and I think that's where some of the misconception is. That's what the companies do. So recruiters, it's never a bad idea to come in contact with them, to build your network of them, but there are a couple pitfalls, one of them being if there's an open job that you seem to be a fit for, they'll love you, and they'll help you, and they'll try and get you into it. but otherwise you might not hear from them. And there's a lot of great recruiters out there, but unfortunately there are a few that also will maybe try and push you a little too hard into a job that you don't want or aren't a fit for so that they can get their commission. So how do you find recruiters? A Google search is one of the best ways to do this. Simply putting in something like recruiters Chicago accounting, and you'll find a few different people. Even not putting the location can help, because recruiters a lot of times will be hired by certain companies and they'll focus on a certain sector, not a location. So they may be trying to find all accounting people regardless of where in the country they're based. So even if you don't want to move, doesn't mean you have to avoid talking to recruiters who are in different parts of the country. I think it might help to take just a moment, since we don't have too big of a group, to find out what kind of work everyone is hoping to get next. If you don't know, that's fine, but just so I kind of have a sense of what you're going for. So why don't we start here?
Oh, I already have a job. I'm a lawyer.
Okay, Laura. Okay, yeah, and if you're already working, just share that too. That's okay.
Looking to get into the IT field.
Okay, IT?
I'm working as an admin. I don't really know what I want to do.
Okay.
No, I'm working in the health industry.
Okay.
I'm looking to work in like international education.
Yeah, I'm working in customer service, and I'm looking to get into that.
Okay. I'm working on environmental science.
In the oil industry.
Okay.
I'm a recruiter.
Where?
I'm a recruiter.
Oh, recruiter. Did I get that right? Okay, good. Back here?
I'm currently working at Groupon as a customer service representative.
Okay.
I'm starting a new job as a chemist on Monday.
Oh, congratulations.
I'm a musician, but I'm trying to break into kind of a part-time like web design position.
Okay, great. Engineering.
Anything with Photoshop and Adobe Flash.
Okay.
I'm advising international students at a university.
Okay.
I'm in accounting.
I do economic development for the Japanese government. So.
Okay, great. Going back here.
I do finance and credit risk.
Okay, great. So we've kind of got a broad range here.
There is one other thing I wanted to share, and that's for those of you that are going into admin roles. This kind of falls under recruiters, so I didn't call it out specifically, but employment agencies can be really good for that. They're usually good for more entry-level positions or clerical, so that can be a really good way to get into a company and also test it out too. So if you're wanting to do something for just a few months, not sure you want to stick with it, you get to kind of see if it's right for you. Or it's also good if you just don't want a full-time job at this point and you want something just to, you know, bring in some income before you go back to school or move or whatever you're planning to do at this point. So another way to find recruiters is good old LinkedIn. LinkedIn does everything. And again, it's kind of like with the Google search. It's finding people by whatever industry they're in, putting in, you know, recruiters, marketing, people will come up, and then reaching out directly to them. Getting on their list. A lot of times recruiters will have kind of email alerts. So whenever something new pops up, they'll send it out to the people who are in their database. And then it also helps you network. This last one, the word that I think makes me sound like a broken record. A lot of times when you meet a recruiter, like we talked about, you may not hear from them again after a job has been filled or if you're not a fit for them. And it's not because they're, you know, trying to brush you off. It's just that they're really, really busy. And, you know, a lot of times they're fielding calls from candidates, you know, it could be several for just one position. And then they're trying to find new business and then trying to work with multiple companies. So treat them the way you would a networking contact. Stay in touch with them through LinkedIn. Write them once in a while. Just, you know, see what's going on, see if there's anything you can help them with. Recruiters love to, if you tell them, and mean it, that you'd be willing to help them if there were any open positions that they had. So, you know, if they have a hard to fill position and You can tell your friends or you know someone who might be a good fit. They love it. It's going to just, it's going to really increase your reputation in their eyes. You're going to build a relationship with people, and they'll be more likely to remember you for when they do have an opening next time. So just curious, what kind of recruiting do you do?
For Japanese companies,
Oh, for Japanese companies. So is it a specific sector or anything?
mostly automotive,
Automotive? Okay, and is it usually the senior level positions?
all kinds.
All kinds. And what's the most common way you find people?
Monster.com.
What's that?
Monster.com.
Okay. A monster? Yeah, and that's something that some recruiters still use too. It kind of just depends on what sector, what they're looking for, but sometimes they will end up looking there too.
Charlotte, can I add something?
Yeah.
On the question how to find recruiters, Mr. Kimata is one of a number of Japan-related HR companies here in the Chicago region that kind of cater to the Japanese companies or have jobs that focus on Japan or Japanese language skills. And so how to find them, I actually have a list up front, so if anybody's interested, please help yourself. There's about 10 in the city that kind of cater to that sector.
Yeah, and with you guys having that unique skill set too, you need to talk to people like him, and him specifically today. And that's just slightly different topic, but when you are trying to think about what it is you want to do, for those of you that don't know, or even if you know but you're not sure what company, you do have this extra asset that you speak a foreign language fluently. And a foreign language a lot of business people speak. It's not something like, I don't know, some obscure language that's not used too often anymore. Basque, yeah. Basque. So take advantage of it. Be sure to mention it in your resume. Put it towards the top in the summary. Make sure that anybody you talk to knows this. Make sure it's on your business cards too. You can actually print business cards for free if you don't have any through a site called Vistaprint. And what's kind of cool about them is, they're nice cards. That's what mine are from. The way they make their money is through the shipping and just add-ons. But it is really important to have business cards, even if you are currently employed. But if you're looking, you want to have this to give to other people. So that's a unique skill set you guys have, and saying that you're bilingual in Japanese and English is going to really set you apart from a lot of people. Any questions?
Can that detract though? Because somebody would say, I don't really need somebody who speaks Japanese. Can it be a turnoff?
I don't see that being a turnoff ever. Bilingual is something that's an asset almost anywhere you are, even if they don't need it. If anything, they might just think, oh, that's kind of cool. As long as you could do the rest of the job, they'll love that. But it's never a detraction to speak another language. Even if you did speak Basque, I would still put that on, because it might even be a conversation starter. Like, oh, what language is that for one? Who speaks that? Even if you wouldn't end up using it on the job. So yeah, I don't see that being an issue. Other question?
Kind of going along with that, I'm pretty sure most of us in this room would agree that having, even if we're not bilingual, just having experience abroad, most of us agree. I think that's an invaluable experience to have, and can help job in many ways. But do employers, do you find, see it that way often, or is it a mix of just people who have spent a year or two abroad?
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's almost always seen as an asset. And it kind of depends what kind of companies you're going for. If it's a small family-owned business, where maybe the people never leave the town, they're probably not going to be as interested. I was talking to Isaac. He lives in an area where I grew up too, and I'm just thinking of some of the small companies there, and they probably wouldn't. It's an old steel mill area. I can't see them thinking too much, but most of the companies that are multinational, even if not in Japan, will think highly of that, because it'll see that you're adaptable, that you're able to talk to people of different cultures, and even if you're not needing to use that skill specifically in that job, it does really say a lot about you as a person, that you're open-minded, willing to take risks, even if you're not fully bilingual. And then, again, if you don't feel your native proficiency, but you do speak some of a language, that's still something you could put on your resume. I know I used to think, well, if I don't speak something fluently, I probably can't put it on, but that's not really the case. You can say, conversational or some Japanese, because chances are you're probably going to know more than most of the people who would be applying. So even if it's just, knowing that they've got someone on staff who can answer a couple simple questions in Japanese is going to give you an edge over someone who's got the same qualifications but doesn't have that.
How much would you recommend elaborating that on a resume? It's always should I elaborate more and have a longer resume, or keep it to one page? Just have a couple bullets for that, would you say, if it's not quite related to the position exactly?
Yeah, it'll always depend on what you're going for. Everything on your resume should be about relevancy and fit, and bilingual and studying abroad are the one kind of exception, just because the relevancy and fit is there for almost every job, even if you wouldn't use a specific skill, language skill, but kind of like I said, the being open to risks or comfortable with other cultures. But generally, everything on your resume should be as focused as possible towards the type of work that you're going for. So you would just want to kind of weigh that against the other qualifications you have and how important speaking Japanese or studying abroad would be to that job. So you definitely want to put it on, but it's something you'd have to kind of do it on a case-by-case basis to decide how much weight to give it. And you did bring up another good point. Resumes, there is a myth that they should always just be 1 page long. They don't have to be. I do a lot that are 2 pages. Once in a while, 3, if somebody's really high up. But the thing to remember is just how far along you are in your career. If you just graduated college, you're going to probably have a 1-page resume. But if you've been working for a while, if you've got a lot of experience, it's okay to go a little bit longer. I know I just broke my own rule by asking about questions, so we'll hold some more till the end so I can make sure to have enough time to get through all of these. So I'll give you guys a minute just to read through this slide. Okay, I think I've unfortunately given everyone a very dismal view already of the results of applying online, so we don't need to spend too much time on that. I will instead give you some tips to maximize your time and your results for using this method. One is to use aggregators. Does anyone know what these are? No? What they are job sites that will basically pull ads from all over the place. So you really only have to go to one to search for jobs. So instead of going to Monster, Career Builder, then all these different niche sites, and then company sites, if you go to simplyhired.com or indeed.com, they're the 2 biggest aggregators, you can do all of your searching in that one place. So you could put, Chicago, finance, job titles. You can even put salary expectations, specific suburbs. You could get really narrowly focused, and then you can even create alerts too, so you're notified when anything new pops up. And then you don't have to spend as much time going back all the time and checking all these different sites. For some reason, the only holdout on these is Craigslist. So that one you have to check separately, but I do think it's worth it. For all but even the most senior positions, Craigslist is underutilized. It's by candidates. It's only $25, I think, still for employers to post a job ad. So not everyone does it, but a lot more do it than you think. I've worked at a couple big corporations, and they would use it because it's next to free. I mean, other than using social media, it's a really, really low-cost way to find people. So they're kind of bare bones. I don't know if anyone's been on Craigslist ever or recently, but it's not very impressive to look at. But they do have some good ads, especially for some of you that we're talking about graphic design types of jobs and admin, but really for just about everything. It doesn't hurt to look. Okay, and then how to boost your odds. Has anyone heard of applicant tracking systems? Okay. I know this isn't something everyone's too familiar with, so I'll just give a real brief overview. A lot of times employers will look for candidates, they'll look through resumes. Like if somebody gets 1,000 resumes for a certain job, that's a lot to go through by hand. So what they'll do is put in keywords that will help kind of cut that down to a manageable number. So a lot of times they'll put in things that are required for the job, like the degrees, the computer systems, usually kind of those industry-specific hard skills. And then the ones that are closest match will come up. So they'll get it down to, say, 20. Then somebody will look at it. There's some good news and bad news here. The good news is that it's not the only way to look. Obviously, the other methods are going to be a lot more effective, and you can bypass this whole system. Even if you still have to apply online, if you have someone else kind of vouching for you, they'll go look at your resume rather than just having to kind of hope that it makes it through. These things are notorious for just not being accurate. There are stories of people who have applied for their own jobs and didn't get it, like just to test it out, just for fun and bored, I guess. So it's not always a good indicator of who's the best match. The other thing is, no one ever really knows what those words are going to be. It's usually someone just kind of deciding in the moment and plugging them in. But if you do want to increase your odds, take a look at the job ad you're applying for and see what they've noted. More often than not, it's those hard skills, the industry specific. You're probably not going to have organizational skills or communication skills as a keyword. You would have degree. You would have Japanese, fluent in that language. You would have specific computer programs, for example, if you were in IT. I really feel like this relying only on ATS is like gambling. I mean, you could spend so much time and energy trying to find just those right keywords, and it's still not going to be as effective as if you put your time and energy towards some of the other methods. So, spend a little extra time on it, but don't stress yourself out about it. Another thing you can do is, after applying online, because almost all companies will require that now, send a hard copy in the mail or by fax, which I know sounds ridiculous. I've actually had people say to me, well, but that's obsolete. But that's kind of the point. Anytime somebody gets a fax, and I've heard HR people tell me this, they're going to read it, if for no other reason than to put it in the right mailbox or to know if they should throw it out. And the same is going to go for anything they get in the mail. And I know the question I'm always asked is, well, what if I can't find the person? Well, in this day and age, with a little digging, I would say you'd probably find somebody about 95% of the time. And if you can, that's great. If you can't, you can still send a hard copy to the company's main address and put it to the attention of the person who would be likely in charge of your department. So if you're going for graphic design, I may probably be, head of communications. So kind of bypassing HR when you can, unless you're going for an HR job, and getting that hard copy in front of them. So then at the same time, if you use following up as a method, you're just going to be increasing the odds that they remember you that much more. So again, finding the phone number of the person. If any of you have ever been in sales before, there's an old trick that works a shocking amount of the time. That's just even calling the main number and acting like, hey, is so-and-so there? And just being real casual about it. You'd be surprised how many times they put you through. Yeah. So it's something that's definitely doable. Even if you get someone's voicemail, even if you get someone's email, even if they don't respond, they'll remember your name, which is the goal. And they wouldn't if you just put your resume online and you didn't match those keywords. So if you have a network, if you have a contact, that's number one. They're walking your resume right on down to the person in charge of hiring. But the next best thing is to get your name in front of the people doing the hiring in a way that they'll remember. And I should say truly in a way that they'll remember, but that's not crazy. Because I think we've all heard some of the stories too. Sometimes people try and stand out, and they do, but not always in a good way. But as long as you follow some of these tips, they'll remember your name and be more likely to bring you in for an interview. It kind of gives that implied trust rather than just somebody random off the street, because they'll start to feel like they know you a little bit. Does anyone like to look for a job? That one? Okay, because I was going to say if anyone did, then maybe you might want to consider being a career coach or in HR, because there are a few of us, but most don't. And what's kind of cool is if you follow a couple steps and do it consistently, you may never have to actually look for a job again. A lot of times opportunities will come to you, through recruiters reaching out or your friends saying, hey, I know someone who would be perfect for this job. And it all goes back to what we talked about. Companies would rather have somebody referred to them. And there is also this thing I've noticed where, I don't know if it's like hard to get, but it is true that people are a little bit more desirable when they're already working and not even actively looking. So you can look and keep your eyes open and network and all of that, but when you're not just pounding the pavement, overdoing it, or applying to every job a certain company has, you're going to still end up being a little bit more desirable than someone who's looking. And it's not fair, I definitely get it, but it is kind of that old adage of, people who have a job are a little more likely to get a job than those who don't. So if you're not working now, don't worry. All of those other steps we talked about will work for you. But the reason I'm sharing that is so that when you are happily employed, you see the value of still kind of conducting a low-level job search all the time so that you won't ever have to go into that active mode again. It's a lot like dieting. It really is. There's the whole thing of, you could go crazy for a couple weeks and it's miserable and you lose a few pounds. Then you have to do it over and over again. Or you could just eat well all the time and then you don't have to do it. It's the exact same thing. It's almost a lifestyle more than just something you should do when you're out of a job and needing to look. So a couple of ways to do it are, once again, networking. And I should back up again before we go through that. Build your brand. That's kind of goes along with what we talked about earlier, making sure you know what it is you want to do, but also making sure that what other people see is how you want to be perceived. So let me ask you a question. Is anyone ever good at something they don't want to do? They don't like to do? Yeah, so what happens? Keep doing more of it. People keep asking you to do it. So the way to combat that is by not putting that out there. And sometimes, a lot of times, career changers are getting this book because what they used to do or what they're currently doing, they don't want to do it again, but because that's everything that's on their resume. That's how they introduce themselves to people. That's the opportunities they get. So if instead you kind of change it and start spending more of your time on the activities that are more related to the next job you want, you're going to be changing your brand, rebranding. So again, the same tips to keep people aware of your brand or what we talked about earlier with networking. I can't overstate this. It's something that you really want to do before you need to do it, because building the relationships, building the reputation can take some time. So you want to do it when you don't need something fast and when it's just less pressure. You're probably going to have a little bit more time too if you're working and not actively looking. So make sure to stay involved in these associations, to network with people. It doesn't have to be that much, but once a week, once a month even. Make sure you have some type of strategy for getting in front of people in your industry. So the bottom line, to get the best results, use all of those methods. Don't rely just on one, but put your energy into the ones that are going to get you the better results. Come up with action steps to take each day and each week, and you will see results. It really ends up being a numbers game. If you schedule, like if you're not working at all, if you plan to reach out to 5 people a day through your networking part of the action step, you will absolutely see results. You just can't fail. So the higher numbers you have, the better results you're going to get. And it helps to determine what these steps will be based on where you're at in the search. If you're not actively looking now, yeah, you might be good with once a week or once a month checking in with people. If you're actively looking, you're going to want to step it up quite a bit. And then I talked about this a little before. Just make career management a regular part of your life. And you may never need to actively job search again, which I think would make many people happy. So I've got just a few more minutes. So any other questions I can take?
You mentioned that a lot of companies, when they hire, they want to hire somebody and keep them for a long period of time. I can understand that, but also at the same time, it seems like a lot of companies are hiring more temporary workers, even if it's temp to permanent. But how do you kind of navigate through that, or what's going on there? Can you explain that?
Yeah, it kind of depends on what the company says they're hiring for, but you're right, the trends show that by 2020, 40 to 50% of the workforce will be contingency, like consultants or temp workers. So if there's a company that is hiring for that type of work, obviously it would be a slightly different dynamic, but you still also want to emphasize the loyalty regardless of what company it is. As far as if it's going to be a longer term job, even that's different than what it used to be. A lot of companies are really thrilled to get someone for a good 2 to 5 years. So the longevity is not what it once was, and that's okay. Both sides understand that. They just want to know that you don't have a crystal ball, but as far as you know right now, you'd like that company and you'd like to be with them indefinitely.
Thank you.
Sure. Any other questions? Robert?
So where I'm at right now, I feel like the hardest thing I have is the ask. I have a job, I'm gainfully employed, I have a large network. But when it comes to actually saying, so do you have any openings, or letting people know that I'm not actively looking, but looking, that's where I seem to have a problem. Can you talk about that?
Yeah,
it's a different challenge.
Yeah, and I see why, because that's the natural question people want to ask is, do you have any openings? And a lot of times, even if people want to help, if they don't, they're like, that's kind of end the conversation. So what you can do is use that REAP acronym and say something like, hey, just so you know, I'm looking for new opportunities in a sector like the one you work in. Do you have anybody you suggest I talk to? Any events you recommend I attend? So you're not directly asking them, what do you know of for me in terms of jobs?
Sure.
But they're going to get that from it, and it keeps the conversation going. So even if you don't walk away with a lead from that specific person, you may get another contact or hear about another industry association you can join that you may never have heard about before. So it's kind of a softer way to kind of come at it. Okay. Anyone else? We probably have time for one more? Okay. Back here?
Regarding resumes, there's probably a lot of things that can be discussed about resumes, but what's like the number one mistake that you've seen on resumes? Like what's a bad resume in your opinion that might get overlooked even if they have a great background that's good for the job? What do you recommend?
Yeah, probably the number one mistake is not including a section at the top, like a summary or profile of qualifications. A lot of times people will just go right into their experience, which wouldn't be so bad if they were going for the exact type of job that they've held before. But if anyone's trying to go, maybe to the next level or a different type of job, it really helps to talk about those transferable skills in that section and kind of get them thinking about you as someone who could do that job rather than someone who's just done all the jobs you've done in the past, which may not end up being the same thing. So it's a way to kind of position yourself for your next job and not get pigeonholed into the things you've done before. So that's one of the biggest things. It's going to help you, and it's going to help them know where to place you. I think we're about done now, so thank you everybody, and thank you for bearing with my the voice. I appreciate everyone coming today, and Robert will be sending you that PowerPoint.
Like Charlotte said, the PowerPoint's going to be available